Greetings, fellow lords and ladies. Well, I look at Game of Thrones Season 5, and I continues on with the episode, Kill the Boy. So, beginning in Marine, Missandei watches over the wounded Grey Worm, who was still unconscious from his wounds sustained fighting the Sons of the Harpy. Daenerys and Daario Naharis watch over the deceased Sir Barristan Selmy. Hizdahr Zolarek enters to extend his condolences. Darius suggests pulling back around the pyramid to use it as a base from which to eradicate the Sons of the Harpy. Daenerys has set opts for rounding up the leaders of each Grey family Marine, including Hizdahr. The leaders are brought to the catacombs where Rhaegal and Viserion are chained up. Daenerys and Unsullied push the leaders slowly towards the two dragons, who can be heard growling from the darkness. Daenerys states that good mothers do not give up on their children. They discipline them if needed, but never give up on them. She asks Daario to push one of the leaders further forward. A sudden burst of flame from Rhaegal sets the man aflame before he is torn apart and eaten by both dragons. Daenerys suggests that the dragons may determine the innocence of the captives and touches Hizdahr's back as if she wanted to push him, but then she pretends she wants not to overfeed the dragons and lets the rest of the men be led away. Grey Worm wakes up later with Missandei sitting beside him. He asks if Barristan and Selmy survived the attack by the Sons of the Harpy, but Missandei shakes her head. Grey Worm thinks he has failed Sir Barristan, his men, and Daenerys, a claim Missandei denies. Missandei tells him he shouldn't be afraid of her being wounded, given that he was ambushed and outnumbered, but Grey Worm says he is ashamed that he was afraid when he was stabbed. Missandei says that everyone fears death. However, Grey Worm says it isn't death he fears. It's the thought of never getting to see Missandei again that terrified him. Missandei is notably touched and kisses Grey Worm. Aww. Daenerys asks Missandei whether she should reopen the fighting pits. Missandei only says that she has seen Daenerys listening to her counselors when her own experience was lacking and ignoring them when she thought they were wrong. Daenerys visits the imprisoned Hizdahr, who begs for his life. Daenerys tells him she has decided to reopen the fighting pits, but only for free men. She also says that she will marry the head of an ancient family of Marine to forge a bond with the people of the city, and that she luckily has one of them on his knees already. She is a very confused Hizdahr to ponder that he will live, and that he will soon be Marine's prince consort. Anyway, at the wall, Sam reads a note from slaver Spade to Maester Aemon, updating him on Daenerys' situation. Sam praises Daenerys' courage, but Maester Aemon worries about his great niece's safety because she is all alone, under siege, and with hardly anyone to guide her, while her last relation is useless and dying thousands of miles away. Jon Snow enters to speak with Aemon in private. He needs the Maester's advice on a controversial order that half of the Night's Watch will hate him for. Aemon tells Jon that half the men at Castle Black already hate him, but that he should trust in his command. It says that Jon will not enjoy being Lord Commander, but with luck, he may find the strength to do what needs to be done. Jon is told to kill the boy and let the man be born. Jon then meets with Tormund and offers to forge an alliance with the Wildlings, bidding Tormund to go north of the wall and rally them all. He will open the gates for them and give them land south of the wall in which to settle. In return, the Wildlings will fight alongside the Night's Watch when White Walkers arrive. Tormund is initially reluctant, and to convince him, Jon unlocks his chains, freeing him. Tormund relents and reveals that most of the Wildlings are up at Hardhome. Jon offers him horses and men to bring the Wildlings back. Tormund tells him that they'll need ships to bring his people back, and Jon says he'll borrow from Stannis. Tormund's final condition is that Jon accompany him as a guarantee that the Wildlings will not fall prey to any traps set by the Night's Watch. But the men of the Night's Watch do not take the news of the alliance well, citing the countless innocent lives lost due to the Wildlings. Even Jon's friend Ed rejects this decision, stating that the Wildlings killed their friends Gren and Pip. Nevertheless, Jon decides to go ahead with his plan, insisting that if they abandon the Wildlings at Hardhome, the White Walkers will exterminate them all and then raise their corpses as more whites to swell their ranks. In the library, Sam tells Gilly about his wish to go to the Citadel and become a maester before he was sent to the Night's Watch when Stannis walks in. Stannis reminisces about how Sam's father, Randyll Tarly, defeated Robert Baratheon in the Battle of Ashford. Stannis wants to know how Sam killed the White Walker, and Sam tells him how he did it with a dagger made of dragon glass. Stannis muses that it is abundantly available in Dragonstone. Sam's been researching dragonglass and how it can kill White Walkers, but has yet to come up with anything. Stannis tells him to continue his research and leaves. Later, Stannis tells Davos that they will march toward Winterfell the next morning. Davos is just waiting until Jon returns with the wildlings, but Stannis decides against it, as any delay improves the Boltons' chances. He also wants to take Selyse and Shireen with them, as he does not think they will be safe at the Wall, surrounded by criminals. Next morning, Stannis' army, with Stannis and Melisandre at its head, starts its journey to Winterfell. Anyway, in the north, Rhaegar Tarth and Podrick Payne, still pursuing Sansa Stark, arrive at an inn near Winterfell. Podrick suggests that Sansa may be better off in Winterfell now that she's far away from the Lannisters, but Bran believes that Sansa will not be safe around the people who murdered her mother and brother, the Boltons. The conversation is interrupted by a servant. Correctly assuming that she is still loyal to the Starks, Bran tells of her allegiance to Catelyn and convinces the servant to get a message through to Sansa. Her presence still being something of a secret, the old servant seems to gain strength from the idea of a surviving Stark. In Winterfell, Ramsay Bolton and Bedouin and Miranda discuss Ramsay's upcoming marriage to Sansa. Miranda admits her jealousy of Sansa, especially since Ramsay had promised to marry Miranda back when he was a bastard. Ramsay disregards Miranda's insecurities, causing her to proclaim that perhaps she will marry too. Ramsay's anger violently tells her that she is his and she is not going anywhere. Further, she is starting to bore him with her jealousy, and she knows what he does to people who bore him. Hearing this, Miranda swears to never bore him again. Meanwhile, Sansa's maid carries the message from Brienne to her, consoling Sansa that she still has allies in the north. The old woman tells her to light a candle in the highest window of the broken tower if she ever needs help. As Sansa wanders around the castle, inspecting this tower where Jaime pushed Bran out of the window, she is approached by Miranda. Putting on a friendly facade, she talks to Sansa about her mother's demise. To help Sansa remember how things used to be, Miranda leads her down to the kennels, where she finds Reek, formerly Theon Greyjoy, asleep in one of the cages. Awoken by Sansa's arrival, he just shakes his head when Sansa calls him Theon and warns her that she shouldn't be down here. Seeing Reek in such a pitiful condition, Sansa angrily storms away. As Reek helps Ramsay get ready for dinner, he confesses that earlier that day, Sansa saw him in his cage. Ramsay, for his own amusement, makes it seem as though he's going to punish Reek severely for not telling him earlier and without being asked, but then simply forgives him. At dinner, Ramsay is initially well behaved, toasting his wedding to Sansa, but is soon back to his old ways as he forces Reek to apologize to Sansa for murdering her brothers Bran and Rickon. With much difficulty, Reek finally mutters an apology. Ramsay then suggests that Reek be the one to give Sansa away at the wedding, since he's the closest thing she has to kin now. Roose Bolton distractedly accepts the suggestion. Seeing that Ramsay is getting complacent, however, Roose has his new wife Walda announce that she's pregnant with a boy. Ramsay is clearly distressed by the news, which in turn delights Sansa. After dinner, Ramsay expresses his distress at the possibility of the unborn child jeopardizing his claim on the north. Roose reprimands his son for disgracing himself at dinner, but seemingly dismisses his concern. He then shares the story of Ramsay's birth. Roose raped a miller's wife, who had married without his consent, after hanging her husband. A year later, she showed up with Ramsay, claiming the baby was his. Roose only had her whipped and the baby drowned, but when Roose laid eyes upon Ramsay, he was convinced that he was his son and decided to keep him. And then reveals to Ramsay that Stannis has an army at Castle Black. Stannis plans to take the Iron Throne, and the road to King's Landing passes through Winterfell, which means that Stannis also intends to take the north. He wants Ramsay's help in defeating Stannis, and Ramsay agrees. And finally, in Old Valyria, as Jorah and Tyrion continue their journey to Meereen, and following Jorah's violent reaction to a previous conversation, Tyrion tries to civilize their relationship and asks where they are. As Jorah sets up to look at the foggy ruins on the old horizon, Tyrion deduces that they are going to pass through the remains of Old Valyria, a shorter route to Meereen and one which pirates will avoid because of Valyria's reputation. Tyrion is apprehensive, but still excited to see the ruins of what was once the greatest civilization in the world. As they catch glimpses of domes, towers, and aqueducts, Tyrion recites a poem about the doom of Valyria, with Jorah joining in at the end. Suddenly, through the fog, we see Drogon fly into view. Although he had been hearing about the dragons for some time, Tyrion was so utterly gobsmacked to see one in person. Jorah struck silent too, as Drogon is even bigger and more majestic than when he left. So distracted are they that they don't notice when the statues on nearby aqueducts stand up and leap at the boat. They are stone men, victims of grayscale so far gone that they have been said to live out the rest of their lives in quarantine in the ruins. Jorah tells Tyrion not to let them touch him and fights them off. However, as Tyrion's tied up, he's cornered at one end of the boat with the stone man advancing on him while Jorah battles more at the other end. Just before the stone man is able to grab him, Tyrion roars off the boat and into the water to escape, where he's then pulled down by more stone men under the water. An undetermined amount of time later, Tyrion wakes up and finds himself on the shore, dragged out of the water by Jorah. After confirming to each other they had not been touched by the stone men, Jorah tells Tyrion that he hopes to find a fishing village and get a boat soon. Otherwise, he'll have to walk all the way around Slaver's Bay to eventually reach Meereen. Tyrion seems up for it, and Jorah goes to look for firewood so they can make camp. However, once more out of Tyrion's view, he pulls back a sleeve to inspect the cracked skin on his wrist, confirming that he had been infected with grayscale during the fight with the stone men. He looks at Tyrion and then glances in the direction of Meereen, knowing that even if he dies, he needs to get Tyrion to Daenerys. Oh, poor Jorah. So anyway, now let's take a look at some behind-the-scenes notes from this episode. The title of this episode is a reference to a prominent quote in the episode. Maester Aemon advises Jon Snow about growing into a man in the Night's Watch, how he must mature into it and make selfless decisions. Kill the boy and let the man be born. In the books, it specifies that this is the same advice he gave his own brother Aegon when he was crowned king. This episode focuses extensively on plot lines at the Wall and in the north, which are becoming intertwined as Stannis Baratheon raids south to lead a new offensive against House Bolton, who at the same time are in Winterfell bracing for his arrival. Daenerys Targaryen's storyline in Meereen also appears, as a Tyrion Lannister en route to Meereen. Brienne of Tarth briefly appears because she has arrived in the winter town on the outskirts of Winterfell, a departure from the novels. Correspondingly, House Lannister does not appear in this episode, as the political faction led by Cersei, not including Tyrion anymore, nor does House Tyrell. House Martell and Dorne do not appear in this episode, nor do Jaime Lannister and Bronn, currently in Dorne. Arya Stark and Braavos does not appear in this episode. House Greyjoy has also not appeared so far this season. Sorry, there's hair on my computer screen. Now, I'll get rid of it later anyway. This is only the fourth episode in the TV series in which King's Landing does not appear at all. The previous three were Season 1's The King's Guard, because King Robert and Cersei were with the Starks on the road and not yet reached the city. Season 3 is The Reigns of Castamere, which focused mostly on the Red Wedding. And Season 4 is The Watchers on the Wall, which focused entirely on the battle for the Wall. According to the Blu-ray commentary, the main table in Winterfell's Great Hall was spun around into the opposite position from where it was last seen, to signify the change in ownership from the Starks to the Boltons, also helping to make the old and familiar set look slightly unfamiliar and unsettling, given that the Boltons live there now. The Boltons also couldn't physically remove every Stark direwolf statue from the castle. Some of them are load-bearing, others would have taken a lot of work to remove, etc. But if you look closely, the Boltons silly smashed the faces of every direwolf statue or edifice. Also explained in the Blu-ray commentary, the main Winterfell set, filmed in Bainbridge, Northern Ireland, was greatly expanded in Season 5. The original sets from Seasons 1 and 2 primarily consisted of the outer courtyard, the feast hall, and one interior bedroom which could be redressed, for Eddard and Catelyn's room, Bran's room, etc. But otherwise, it wasn't an extensive interconnected interior set. For Season 5, the production team constructed a complex of staircases, corridors, and bedrooms, all added on top of the existing courtyard and feast hall. The manuscript that George R. R. Martin originally wrote for the fourth novel grew so long that he had to split it into two novels, but whose events occurred simultaneously. The fourth novel, A Feast for Crows, focuses on events within the Seven Kingdoms themselves, particularly Cersei, Margaery, and the political situation in King's Landing. The fifth novel, A Dance with Dragons, now backs up and covers all of the events set in the same time period, but occurring outside of the Seven Kingdoms proper. Jon Snow stands Baratheon at the Wall, and the Boltons in the north. Daenerys and Meereen, and also Arya and Tyrion in the Free Cities. Martin pointed out that there are few narrative parallels between events in different regions that are not immediately obvious as a result, i.e., he meant to intercut Cersei chapters to King's Landing with Daenerys chapters in Meereen, contrasting each queen is challenged to hold her world together. The TV series intercut this material, however, as it was originally conceived. Therefore, in the preceding episode, the rise of radical movements of both regions are presented in parallel. The Fifth Militant to King's Landing and the Sons of the Harpy and Meereen. Conversely, this episode basically recreated the effect that the print version of A Dance of Dragons had, focusing on the Wall, Winterfell, Daenerys and Meereen, and Tyrion and Essos on his way to Meereen, while containing no material at all from the core territories of the narrative, such as King's Landing and the rest of southern Westeros. Josso mentions prominently in dialogue with Tormund that, according to legend at least, the wall was built 8,000 years ago. This had only previously been explained in the animated histories and lore shorts included in the Blu-ray releases, and characters have just loosely said that the wall is thousands of years old. The creation of the wall is what led to the divide between the Seven Kingdoms to the south and the Wildlings, were basically just anyone lucky to be born north of the wall. Thus, the Night's Watch and the Wildlings believe they have been enemies for the past 8,000 years or so. Some argues that there is plenty of land that the Wildlings could settle on in the Gift, the territory immediately south of the wall ruled by the Night's Watch. Now that Jon Snow has been elected Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, he's technically ruler of both the Wall and the Gift. As Bone Marsh points out, most of the villages in the Gift were deserted over the generations because Wildlings' attacks killed or drove off the inhabitants. Bran Stark and his companions previously passed north through the Gift in Season 3's The Rains of Castamere, when Jon also happened to be traveling through the Gift, after passing back south over the Wall, then heading east back to Castle Black. Mira Reed pointed out in that episode that the Gift had a lot of good farmland, but no one was living there, and Brett similarly explained that the region had become depopulated over the centuries due to wildling attacks. The Gift appeared again in Season 4 when Sam and Gillian went to Molestown, a small village south of Castle Black on the King's Road, but apparently the largest settlement of any size in the Gift. As recalled in this episode, Ollie lived in a village in the Gift, but in Season 4's Breaker of Chains, the wildling raid band led by Tormund Ygritte and Styr attacked, killed his parents and everyone he knew, and only left him alive to warn the Watch to try to draw them away from Castle Black. Ramsay mentions the upcoming wedding being praised from Moat Cailin to the Last Hearth. As seen last episode, Moat Cailin is the southernmost point in the north, serving as the only gateway through the otherwise impassable swamps of the Neck, ruled by House Reed of Greywater Watch. Last Hearth, meanwhile, is the northernmost castle seat in the north, and therefore in all the Seven Kingdoms. Last Hearth is the seat of House Umber, staunch allies of the Starks. The lands of the Gift, which belong to the Night's Watch, are on the immediate northern border of House Umber's lands centered around Last Hearth. This episode marks the first prominent appearance of Bowen Marsh, with speaking lines. He appeared in the background in the Season 5 premiere but did not speak. He is the first steward of the Night's Watch, while Otho Yorwick is the first builder, and Sir Alistair Thorne is the new first ranger. All three are present at the meeting scene in this episode. Together they make up the command officers of the Order and the Lord Commander's advisors. The appearances of Marsh and Yorwick have a curious history in the TV series. After Bran Fortune appeared prominently in Season 1 with speaking lines, as the Night's Watch officer who leads Jon and Sam to take their vows before a weirwood tree. He was never identified by name. The Fortune said he was told that his character was Bone Marsh. This was later switched around, however. Fortune now returned in Seasons 2 and 3, and when he did reappear in Season 4, the scene he was made a point to prominently have Thorne address him as first builder Otho Yorwick, clearly establishing the minor retcon that Fortune's character was actually Yorwick in Season 1. Now actor Michael Condren was introduced starting Season 5 as officially playing Bowen Marsh. In the novel, Reek notices that Walda Bolton is pregnant, though no one announces it. It is unknown how Ramsay feels about his stepmother's pregnancy, but it could be assumed that he is not too happy at the thought that his status as Rooses' heir is no longer secured. Earlier in the novel, Roose does remark to Reek that he is concerned that if and when Walda does start bearing Rooses' children in the near future, and cause strife as Ramsay will see them as a threat to his position as Rooses' heir. Roose tells Reek about Domric's death, heavily implying that he was murdered, by Ramsay. Roose claims that Ramsay will kill them all, of course. That's for the best. I will not live enough. I will not live long enough to see new sons to manhood, and boy lords are the bane of any house. Waldo will grieve to see them die, though. Legitimization of bastard children is granted rarely enough. There are simply no formal legal rules for how it impacts the line of succession. It is up to the discretion of the Lord, and civil wars often result from such disputes. If a lord has a bastard son, and later has a lawful son by his married wife, the younger but lawful son is his legal heir. If that elder bastard son is later legitimized, however, his own supporters said he is now the heir because he is the eldest, while others would argue that even a legitimized bastard ranks behind a younger but lawful son. Both Roose and Ramsay are aware of this. As the writers explained in the Inside the Episode featurette, Roose is using Waldo's pregnancy as an implied threat that Ramsay had better start behaving. Otherwise, Roose could simply name Waldo's child as his legal heir at his own discretion. Ramsay Bolton's mother is actually still alive in the novels, though she has not directly appeared. Ramsay lived with her for most of his life as a simple peasant. Eventually, she urged him to go to the Dreadfort to seek out his birthright as Roose's son. In this episode, Ramsay says that she simply died when he was an infant, sometime after she brought him to Roose. So apparently TV continuity simplified it so that Ramsay has been living at the Dreadfort for many years. Oddly, Ramsay actually seems to care about his mother. This even extended to the point that he developed a warped fantasy interpretation of his origins. Roose generally fell in love with his peasant mother like something out of a fairy tale. The novelist Roose did not recall the story about how he raped the miller's wife to Ramsay himself, but mused about it aloud to Reek. It also helped to observe to Reek that the miller's wife ultimately didn't turn out to be nearly as good of lay as he thought she'd be. She was hardly worth the rope he used to hang the miller. So all in all, it was a dismal day. The TV version moved the dialogue around somewhat. In the novels, when Roose is upset with Ramsay's growing cockiness and lack of strength, bluntly fleeing alive lords who displease him, he bluntly says, "All you have I gave you. You do well to remember that, bastard. That you better shape up before you make me rue the day I raped your mother." The Roose departs with Reek, explains him the story of the miller's wife. The TV series doesn't mention a detail from the novels. The Boltons often practice the banned practice of first night, in which a lord has the right to have sex with a commoner's wife on their wedding night. The miller and his wife were therefore married in secret without Roose's knowledge to avoid him exercising this right, though he stumbled upon them during a fox hunt anyway. First night was banned in Westeros over 200 years ago by King Jaehaerys I Targaryen, though a few unscrupulous lords, such as the Boltons, still try to exact it from their commoners. They think they can get away with it. Roose scoffs that he thinks some of the Umbers still do in secret, as well as the poor mountain clans up northwest of Winterfell, while Scott goes to the east, but this is unconfirmed. Perhaps it's bad that the TV series did not mention this. First Night never actually existed in the real-life Middle Ages, nor was even alleged to exist at the time. It's merely a myth about the Middle Ages that was invented in modern times. First Night became particularly in vogue during the 1990s, when George R. R. Martin was writing much of the first novels and developing the Boltons, due no small part to the promise it had in the 1995 film Braveheart. Even when the film was released, medieval historians vocally complained that this was an utterly inaccurate portrayal of medieval society, and no such right ever existed. Nonetheless, it became ingrained in pop culture perceptions of the period. That being said, Westeros is in a fictional world removed from real life and thus not beholden to real life history, but does reinforce certain stereotypes in a narrative otherwise striving for realism. Coincidentally, Rupert Van Sittard, the actor who plays Lord Jon Royce in seasons 4 and 5 of Game of Thrones, himself appeared in the film Braveheart, specifically as the English lord who enforced the right of first night on a Scottish peasant bride. Roose says that when Ramsay was first presented to him as a baby, he at first wanted to throw his infant bastard into a river, but he looked at him and saw that he was his son. The novel specified the detail that when Roose looked at the baby Ramsay, he suddenly inherited its own distinctive Bolton eye color. Very creepy pale ghost gray eyes, so pale that they are nearly white, like the pupils are specks of dirt and ice. In the TV series, both Roose and Ramsay do have very pale blue-gray eyes. Seeing that the babe had his eyes and was clearly his son, the taboo against kinslaying stayed his hand. This echoes how in season 3, Tywin Lannister said that after Tyrion's mother died in childbirth, on top of the humiliation he was born as such a dwarf, he considered throwing the infant Tyrion into the ocean, but he couldn't because Tyrion was a Lannister. The stigma against kinslaying also gave him pause. However, while Bruce's comment about Ramsay is in the books, Tymon's line that he initially wanted to kill Tyrion in his grief was actually invented for the TV show. So if anything, in reverse order, the TV writers were probably inspired by Roos's later line to Ramsay when they gave similar dialogue to Tywin back in season 3. Sorry. Ramsay's bedroom Miranda does not exist in novels, though she is somewhat like a ginger-swapped version of the Bastard's Boys, a group of young men from the Dreadfort who are Ramsay's lackeys. Ramsay doesn't really care about any of them and has no qualms about killing them. However, if someone else kills them, he becomes extremely enraged. Miranda is said to be the Kennelmaster's daughter in this episode. This might be a slight nod to how in the novels, the eldest of the Bastard's Boys is Ben Bones, the Kennelmaster of the Dreadfort. Miranda says that Ramsay promised to marry her. While confusing at first, on closer analysis, this was apparently just something Ramsay said as pillow talk and didn't mean seriously. Even at the end of the episode, as he waves it off as if it was nothing when she brings it up. Ramsay doesn't really care about anyone, except for a scene for Roos's approval. Actor, I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, Iwan Rayon, confirmed in an interview with Details.com that Miranda is just a disposable, underling slash sex object to Ramsay. Quote, if she bores him, he'll kill her. It's not like he's been in love with her or anything. It's just sex. She's nuts and she's fun, and she's another pair of eyes in the castle. I don't think he's capable of loving or whatever, but he kind of likes her. He'd get rid of her if she was annoying him. End quote. In the next episode, Miranda explains that Violet, her companion when she helped Ramsay torture Theon, was later killed by Ramsay when she got pregnant, causing him to grow bored with her. At the beginning of season 4, Ramsay and Miranda hunted and killed the girl Tansy in the woods around the Dreadfort for petty amusement, but Violet was never seen again. Apparently, the actress who played Violet got pregnant and could not return to the show, but the original intention was to have Ramsay kill Violet with his hunting dogs, showing that, as with his own master torturer whom he killed in season 3, he really doesn't care about any of his underlings and will randomly kill them for flippant reasons. Because the actors could not appear, they had to use newer girl Tansy in the scene instead. Let's see the point compared to Miranda's accomplice Violet. To killing Miranda's accomplice Violet. Stannis Myers unders by the viewer to correct the complaint that dwellings die, there will be less of them to fight. This is a callback to how Stannis corrected Davos previously in Garden of Bones. Davos said that without the fingertips on his offhand, he has at least 4 less fingernails to clean. Stannis insisted fewer. Stannis is stickler for the rules in all things, including proper grammar. The exchange from Davos Seaworth presumes that Stannis' wife and daughter will stay at the wall, but Stannis instead says he doesn't want them to live here with so many former thieves and rapers. It's apparently a nod to how this is a change from the books. In novels, Sleeve, Shireen, and even Melisandre stay at Castle Black with a small contingent of Stannis' men, as Davos suggests here in the TV episode. Word has reached even the wall about Daenerys Targaryen, her 3 live dragons, and her conquest in Slaver's Bay. Maester Aemon is also shown for the first time hearing news about her. As Aemon says, he is Daenerys' only living relative, her father's uncle. It takes many months for news to pass from Slaver's Bay to King's Landing or the Wall, given that the Messenger Raven network doesn't spread beyond Westeros to the lands across the narrow sea, so messages have to wait on ships traveling by sea. Aemon and Sam can't be reacting to recent news about Daenerys, though the episode intercutting between the 2 storylines might give this false impression. Of course, the message Sam reads mentions, at least specific from this season, only Daenerys conquered Meereen and chose to stay there to protect the foremost slaves, which happened in the middle of last season. Time moves more slowly in the TV continuity than the novels, at the rate of about 1 year per TV season. Therefore, as presented, it's entirely plausible that the news about Daenerys and Sam reads is actually reporting on Daenerys' activities several months ago. As Aemon explained to Jon back in Season 1's Baelor, and again in Season 4's The Watcher on the Wall to Sam, he was actually born Prince Aemon Targaryen, but gave up his family name when he became a maester, and he later joined the Night's Watch. Aemon explained to Jon that he is a long-forgotten uncle of Mad King Aerys II Targaryen. He became a maester because he wasn't the eldest son and heir, but after his older brothers died, there were some who offered the crown to him. He refused, citing his vows as a maester, and then joined the Night's Watch to avoid the political intrigues of the capital entirely. His younger brother, Aegon V Targaryen, then became king. In the novels, Aegon V was actually Aerys II's grandfather, not his father. The Mad King was the son of Aegon V's son, Jaehaerys II, making Aemon Daenerys' great-great-uncle. This is officially different in the TV version, however. Aemon stated back in Season 1 that Aerys II was Aegon V's son, not his grandson. The TV writers independently confirmed that Jaehaerys II has officially been omitted from the TV continuity. Why this change is made is unclear, though apparently it was to simplify the relationship between Daenerys and Aemon. Aemon said it's terrible for a Targaryen to be alone in the world. For years, he was alone at the Wall and thought the rest of his family had been completely destroyed. So he has an idea of how Daenerys must feel, because she thinks she's the only Targaryen left, and she doesn't know of Aemon. Aemon mentions that he's 100 years old. Other TV materials describe him as over 100 years old. His exact age in TV continuity is not confirmed. In the novels, he is 102 years old at this point, but time moves so slowly in the TV series, and character ages sometimes get shifted around. Following its mention last episode, Old Town, the second largest state in Westeros and nearly the same size as King's Landing, is mentioned again, this time by Sam. The specific explains that the Citadel is located there, the university-like institution which is headquarters and training facility of the Order of Maesters. It also has one of the largest, if not the largest, libraries in the known world. Sam mentioned that he always wanted to be a maester. His father, Randyll Tarly, wanted to disown him by forcing him to join the Night's Watch on the threat of death. Even the maesters also forswore all inheritance. The headquarters is located not far from House Tarly's seat, in the east of the Reach. Sam was obviously much better suited to intellectual pursuits. Raising the question why Randyll didn't just make him join the Maesters instead of essentially exiling him to a frozen penal colony at the Wall, he would probably soon be killed fighting wildlings. The novels do seem to give an explanation, however. When Sam did express interest in joining the Maesters to his father, responded by chaining Sam to his neck to the wall in a prison cell, and then leaving him there for 3 days. Apparently, due to the strong martial traditions of House Tarly, Randyll thought it would be humiliating for any Tarly to give in such bookish matters. And in contrast, he thought it would be less embarrassing if Sam at least joined the Night's Watch, which is a sworn military order. Sam says that Castle Black's library is relatively small. In the novels, it's actually very well stocked, because the Night's Watch is many centuries old. It is a repository for all sorts of rare manuscripts that they collected over the centuries, such as the rare manuscripts Sam was reading this episode. Then again, they're interesting to Sam because they are rare scouting reports about wildling clans and locally written books. The Night's Watch isn't exactly considered as a bastion for higher learning. Sam observes that Sam is the son of Randyll Tarly, who defeated Robert at the Battle of Ashford in Robert's Rebellion, the only battle Robert ever lost. The battle has been previously mentioned in the animated Histories and Lore shorts, but not in the main TV series. Sam explains to Stannis that he killed a White Walker with a dragonglass dagger. Stannis says he knows what it is, because they have it back on Dragonstone Island. Also in the Dragonstone video, Stannis admits that Dragonstone's only abundant resource is in fact dragonglass obsidian, because it is a volcanic island. Also in Season 4, Stannis admitted to Tycho Nestoris that Dragonstone does not produce significant enough crops or livestock to sustain a large army. In the Histories and Lore video, Stannis complains that while Dragonstone has a lot of dragonglass, it is apparently useless, given that it's too sharp to be used in construction but too brittle to be used in swords. So, in effect, Stannis just withdrew from the biggest stockpile of known anti-White Walker weapons when he came to the Wall. Barristan Selmy has died. Although he has not died as of the most recently published novel. His illness last episode were not necessarily fatal, as some characters in novels have faked their deaths at certain points. Actor Ian McElhinney has publicly stated that his character is dead. McElhenney, and Simon mispronouncing that, explained in an interview with Huffington Post that he began to suspect that his character was being killed off when his filming schedule was shorter than usual. He read all the novels as research for the role, and Barristan actually becomes a point of view narrator in the fifth novel, and would therefore have quite a lot of material, which made him even more suspicious. He asked Benioff and Weiss, and they confirmed that his character was being killed off. McIlhenny was deeply confused. Instead of simply accepting it, tried to argue against them that the story they were adapting would be much better suited if they did remove Barristan's substantial material. Apparently, from interviews, Benioff and Weiss wanted to make room for Tyrion to meet Daenerys by the end of season 5 and be her new anchor to current political views in Westeros, to political events in Westeros. Barristan filled the exact same role from season 3 onwards. Without him, Daenerys would need to turn to Tyrion as a new advisor. The Gregor Missandei romance subplot continues from last season. It has no counterpart in the novels, because Missandei is only 10 years old in the books, but like many other younger characters, was aged up for the TV series. Buck Missandei is preternaturally intelligent, however, and becomes the keen advisor to Daenerys, to the point that in the novels, Daenerys does in fact let Missandei formally sit as an advisor on her ruling council, much she asks for her advice in this TV episode. Missandei's reluctance to counsel Dany is somewhat odd even in the context of the series. However, Crassus Mo Necklace allowed Missandei to offer her own opinions and insights into Daenerys' actions as statements during their interaction. Daenerys certainly hasn't given any indication that she expects Missandei to keep quiet. Daenerys has had one of her enemies among the old slave masters burned to death fed to her dragons. As Emilia Clarke points out in the episode's behind-the-scenes featurettes, this is shot as of how her own father, the Mad King, burned his enemies alive. Barristan even directly explained this to Daenerys 3 episodes ago. On the other hand, she only burned one as example to the rest, and then turned around to reopen the fighting pits to try to bring peace to the city, instead of executing all of the slave masters as Daario suggested. Old Valyria is seen for the first time, after being mentioned in passing as the ancestral home of House Targaryen many times. The smoking sea they passed through in this episode was formed when the former Valyrian Peninsula was shattered into a chain of large islands by the Doom of Valyria, a massive explosion of the chain volcanoes known as the 14 Fires. In the novels, its appearance is more sinister, with an almost red glow being projected in the skies above Old Valyria. Whether from a still active volcano or some other source, none could say. And waters that are near the boiling point give off poisonous fumes. The ruins are feared to be haunted by demons and monsters, but few who have ventured into the ruins seeking lost treasures have ever returned. As Jorah says, even pirates are afraid to go there. In the book, Jorah did not even dare attempt to sail through the smoky sea in Valyria was not seen up close. Instead, he and Tyrion passed by ship around the Valyrian Peninsula, the long way, and Tyrion sees the ominous red glow of Valyria on the horizon. Of course, it is possible that the ruins Jorah and Tyrion sailed aren't over Valyria itself, but over the outskirts of the massive city. Old Valyria itself is centered in the middle of an island formed when the Doom shattered the Valyrian Peninsula, not near the new coastline. In contrast, looking at a map, if Jorah was making the shortest route to Slaver's Bay by cutting across the northern parts of the Smoking Sea, he'd still pass the ruins of the satellite Valyrian cities Oros and Tyria. That being said, the southern part of the Valyrian Peninsula around Valyria itself was the heartland of an empire which lasted over 5,000 years. It became densely filled with their massive construction projects, i.e., the urban sprawl of the greater Valyria metropolitan area covered most of the southern peninsula. The Terrasop region was simply referred to as Valyria, as if it was one big city. In short, Jorah and Tyrion might just be going through one of the outlying regions of Valyria that isn't quite as dangerous as the central parts near the 14 Fires. Stas mentioned in the preceding episode that Stonemen, severely afflicted by the Grayscale Plague, are pushed out to live at the fringes of civilization in the ruins of Old Valyria. In the novels, a large area around the ruins of Crowayne, known as the Sorrows, on the river north of Volantis, is used essentially as a leper colony for people suffering from grayscale. There are also vague rumors of men living in the shattered remains of the Valyrian Peninsula, and the ruins of Oros, Tyria, and Old Valeria itself, who might similarly be stillmen pushed to find the abandoned fringes of civilization, but these rumors are unconfirmed in the novels. In the books, Tyrion was attacked by Stillman when he was making his way south along the Rhine River through the ruins of Croane, on his way from Pentos to Volantis. In the TV version, his journey mostly just happened off screen and is entirely shared by land and wheelhouse with Varys between episodes 1 and 3 of season 5. Croane used to be a great city of the Rhoynar, the ancestors of the Dornishmen, ruled by the Martells, who were defeated by the Valyrians, ancestors of the Targaryens. The TV version, ironically, switches so that the ruins of Valyria are shown as a leper colony for Stillman Grayscale, not the city of their rival, not the city of their rival that they defeated. The defeated Rhoynar believed that Grayscale was a curse brought down so the Valyrians would never be able to occupy the Rhoynar city-states along the river which they had destroyed. Though again, Valyria also ended up in ruins eventually, and also may be used as jumping ground for people afflicted with Grayscale by the time of the novels. The episode's dialogue seems to include a joking acknowledgement of this change. When Tyrion wakes up in the boat, he asks where they are, looks confused and asks, "Not the Rhoyne?" Out of universe, going by the novels, his upcoming encounter with Stillman in a ruined city would have been expected to happen while he was traveling south to Volantis on the Rhine River. In universe, there really isn't much reason for Tyrion to say this. In the preceding episode, Jorah already explained to him they are sailing away from Volantis, which is at the mouth of the Rhine, and going east to Marine. Though in universe, the Quebec that Tyrion just means they aren't near the Rhine anymore. According to the Season 5 Blu-ray commentary, the visual appearance of Lyra's ruins was inspired by the real-life ruins of Angkor Wat, Cambodia. Actually, Gemma Jackson used a trip she made to Angkor Wat as the inspiration for the appearance of Harrenhal back in Season 2. Jackson left the show after Season 3 ended, though the journal point she made seems to have stuck with the rest of the production team. People can be very surprised at just how quickly nature will reclaim ruined buildings and leave them overgrown vegetation if they are left undisturbed by further human action. This principle will hold true for both a half-ruined castle complex in Westeros or a ruined city in Essos. Therefore, the ruins of Valyria have also become overgrown and subsumed by the jungle, to an even greater extent than Harrenhal. When Drogon flies over the ruins of Valyria, he peers out of a sky colored red by the sunset. The Season 5 Blu-ray commentary confirms that this was a deliberate nod to the line about the red skies of Valyria from Martin's description in novels, which Tyrion can see the glow from the still active volcanoes on the horizon from his ship. A behind-the-scenes video detailed the design of the Stillmen and how the fight with Tyrion and Jorah have with them was set up. Prosthetic supervisor Barry Gower explained that they developed a look of the Stillmen based on the design of Shireen's grayscale scarring, which was introduced back in Season 3, but then progressed to look even worse. They didn't just take the exact same scarring pattern and cover more of their bodies with it. Logically, they have a more advanced and severe case of the disease. The scarring is not only more widespread but more pronounced, dark gray with very deep cracks like stone, compared to Shireen's scarring, which isn't as discolored and doesn't have such deep cracks. It took about 4 hours to apply all the prosthetics to each stuntman. Someone Calvin Heisman, who plays the stoneman who jumps off of the ruined wall into the river, is when they actually jumped into the river from a height of 21 feet without computer effects. The production team had to work out the physics in advance to determine how deep an object of his weight would plunge into the water from such a height, and on determining that the riverbed was too shallow, dredged it to be another 7 feet deeper. The ruined pillars of the aqueduct that the boat approaches, which the stonemen jump off of, was built out of polystyrene around an existing bridge at the on-location river. The close-up shots of the fight on the boat itself, however, were very difficult to shoot and had to be filmed at a disused swimming pool that they converted into a water tank. When Tyrion is dragged underwater at the end of the fight, Peter Dinklage and the stuntmen were actually submerged underwater. Sometimes they film scenes when characters are dragged underwater. This effect is very simulated with wind machines in their hair, i.e. the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, when Sam Gamgee falls into the river at the end of the first film. A wind machine was blowing the actor's hair to look like it was moving in water. But on closer inspection, his clothing is dry, and and is clinging to him as it would submerged in water. Instead, for this episode, Dinklage was indeed dragged 10 feet underwater by one of the Stillman stunt performers who was weighted down. Just off camera, other crew members were also present at the bottom of the swimming pool wearing scuba gear, who gave Dinklage and the Stuntman breaths from extra oxygen tanks between takes. The season 5 Blu-ray commentary confirms that the way Stillman first appears before jumping into the water, above Tyrion, out of focus, and motionless, so the audience doesn't realize he's already been on screen for some time, and was a deliberate nod to a similar scene in Ridley Scott's classic sci-fi horror film Alien. At the end of the episode, Jorah and Tyrion have passed through the Smoking Sea and are on the western shore of Slaver's Bay. Meereen is on the opposite, eastern side of the large bay, though still many hundreds of miles away. Daenerys left Pentos in the Season 1 premiere, only ended up in Meereen by the Season 4 premiere, but in contrast, Tyrion has come very close to Meereen in only about half of one TV season. This is still because Tyrion is more or less going the direct quickest route, while Daenerys passed through many other and much more distant lands before arriving in Meereen by a circuitous journey. Daenerys spent months heading to Vastal Thrak in Season 1, marched far to the north and east of Meereen, then Season 2 passed out through the Red Waste and arrived in Qarth, which is roughly twice the distance from Volantis compared to the distance between Volantis and Slaver's Bay. She then headed back west, closer to Pentos, and she went to Slaver's Bay. Daenerys also simply stopped in Vastal Thrak and then for Qarth, and then Qarth for months at a time without traveling. Quaithe mentioned to Jorah back in Season 2 in Qarth that sailing past Valyria is dangerous. She's painting symbols on a sailor's back, which are alleged to ward off demons. Sailors are even afraid to sail around Valyria, but Jorah sailed through the Smoking Sea and ruins of the region. This was quite probably a hint by the writers, though in novels, Jorah and Tyrion sail around Valyria, as does all of the sea travel. What is clear is if the writers knew even back in Season 2 that there would be a slight change and Jorah wouldn't go with Tyrion through Valyria itself. Notably, Quaithe actually mentioned nothing about grayscale at the time. So overall, I think this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, let's say that Jon and his whole thing about the Alliance of Wildlings is not going to go over with some people by the end of the season. So yeah. So overall, I give Kill the Boy 4 Iron Thrones out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in more as we take the next episode, Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. So until then, remember everyone, winter is coming.